Okay, so I think, yeah, more or less everyone is here. So you guys do know that before you come for this tutorial, you have to have attempted lesson 44 on the website, yeah? And this tutorial, we are not just going through the answers, but we are also providing a platform where you can ask questions, basically. So for any of the grammar concepts later that you might not understand, or if you would like more information about the vocabulary that we're dealing with or anything like that, or any of the questions, okay, please ask. This is what the tutorial is for. Okay, if you don't ask, I won't know what you don't know. All right, although I will do my best to cover everything in as much detail as I can. All right, so without further ado, time's up. All right, let's begin. All right, so today we are covering three main sections: editing, composition, and current affairs. So that current affairs is there for your general knowledge, as well as for you to practice in an oral way, but you're not really speaking it out. You're kind of like typing your answers in response, okay? So let's have a look at editing. Okay, so just to remind everyone, as usual, all right, editing, we have 10 questions, okay? And out of the 10 questions, 2 of them, right, are actually correct, which means in those questions, right, you should put a tick sign, right? That's what your school will ask you to do, put a tick sign. But in 88 Tuition, we say put a Y, right, in the space provided. Okay, so that just means that there's no error in the line at all. Also, do remember that it's not that the first question will always begin in the first line. All right, you do realize that the first line of the passage that is given to you, and the last line, right, they will never give you a question for that, because that is an MOE requirement, right? It's a format that MOE has standardized, so that in the first line you can have a look at what the tense of the passage is. I know that the tense will change sometimes, right? Depending on what the author is writing about. But at least with the first line, you can tell what the tense is, right? You can look for your EDs and your IEDs and your Ds behind the verbs. You can even look for your past perfect tenses to tell you that, the whole thing's happening in the past. Or it could be using present tense, all right? Or any of the other tenses for that matter. It could be talking about something in the future as well. So they could be using future tense too. So do keep that in mind when you look at the first line as well as the last line, because the first line and last line are provided to you, right, all the time without any questions in them, so that you know there's definitely no error in the first and the last line. Now, for the rest of the lines in between, right, that's a different story. They can give you a question for any of those lines over there. But for us over here, I think we are very kind. We give you 12 lines exactly. And then the first line and the last line, right, they are, there's no errors, right, because there's no question to them. And then everything in between, your line number 2 all the way to your line number 11, that's your 10 questions over there. Okay, now out of those 10 questions, 2 of them are so-called ticks, right, or Y, which means no error. Now, you should have done this in your practice before. Okay, so I'm not sure if everyone is familiar with the term foie gras. It's actually a French term, and that's what basically we are looking at for this entire passage here. But the thing about foie gras is this: it's a French term because it was invented by the French, of course, and trust them to come up with something, right, that is so inhumane, all right, to animals. Now, it's considered a delicacy, right, because when you eat it, right, it's supposed to taste wonderful. It's supposed to taste really, really good. Personally, I haven't tasted foie gras before, and I'm against tasting it because it is it's just so cruel, right, to the goose. So let me just show everyone here. Let me just show everyone here what foie gras actually looks like. All right, and it's not pronounced foie gras. All right, it's foie gras. So you can get it at cold storage, I believe. You can get like a you can get like a glass jar, in cold storage. And what they like to do is so this is basically goose liver paste, right? So they grind the liver down and then they make the paste like that, right? So people use it for use it on bread. People use it, with like a dish like that where they pan fry it, so on and so forth. So this is foie gras, but this is actually the way that they actually create foie gras. They basically overfeed the geese, and when that happens, right, they're in so much pain, especially when they place the pipe into the throat, right, and force feed the goose, right. It's kind of like someone pushes a pipe down your throat, and then they keep force feeding stuff in, right, and you can feel your stomach like bloating, right, and sometimes they do it too much, right. The goose actually vomits, tries to vomit everything out. But you know what they do? They tie up the goose's beak, right, and they can't puke it out. So it's actually a very how would I say? It's actually very inhumane. And if you have the opportunity to not eat it, or if someone is eating it, you have the opportunity to spread awareness about foie gras to your friends or your relatives, and citing to them how inhumane it actually is. But because it's such a delicacy, right? It also is very expensive. So these people make a lot of money, right? Like normally, if I have a goose and then I kill it and then I roast it or whatever, I'm not going to sell it for, even like what half the amount of money, right, you get just for selling these types of special special meat, right, to the consumers. Okay, and that is why people still continue doing it, because it's very lucrative, it's very profitable. All right, so there we go. That's what foie gras is all about. So let's go through the answers over here. Oh, Ken Meng says he has tried foie gras before. It tastes quite bad. I'm glad you don't like the taste. I've never tasted it before, simply because I'm just very against these animals. Like, we are already farming them. They know that they're going to die one day, but we need the meat to give us protein, right? So that we can be healthy. But there's no reason why we should torture them and then still kill them, right, in the end, which is very cruel, I think. I personally, I like duck meat a lot. Have I had goose meat before? I think I have. All right, but definitely not because the animal was cruelly treated. Okay. So let's have a look at question number 1, right? Let's read from the top, the very first line, and then let's continue. To produce the French dish, foie gras, which means fatty liver, farm workers push pipes down male geese's throats 3 times daily and pumps. So the pumps over here, now, when we have editing, we always have these types of little errors, right? That it's very hard to note. So over here we have pump as a verb, but there's an S behind, and that is a problem, because I don't know if you remember your subject-verb agreement, right? If the subject is singular, the verb, all right, if you're using the verb in the present tense only, right, just the present tense, which means in present tense, you choose whether to add the S, the ES, or the IES behind, or choose whether not to add it only, because it's in the simple present tense. And in the simple present tense, right, when we add like let's say, for example, give some examples. So ones that we would add like IES behind would be words that normally end with Y. Like, for example, cry, right? If it's cry, we would change it to cries, like that. Right. So we cancel the Y and then we add the IES behind. All right. And then normally it would be something like jump, and then we change it to something like jumps, that kind of thing. Okay. But do remember that just because I said simple present tense, right, it doesn't actually mean that I'm talking about something happening now. look at what I just said. Happening, the ing. Normally, when we're talking about things that are happening now, we use the ing form, which we call the continuous form. All right, it's not the present, simple present form. Simple present form is used to talk about things that occur all the time, regularly. All right. So over here, this pushing down of the pipe down the male geese's throats 3 times daily, right? It occurs daily, you see. That's why the author over here is using the simple present tense. He's just stating a fact, right? Or she's just stating a fact and telling you this happens all the time. All right. Now, this is, of course, wrong over here. All right. Because who's the one doing the pumping? You have to ask yourself, where is the subject over here? And then, we realize that, you know what? The subject, the one doing the pumping, are the workers over here. So workers, what do they do? First verb, workers push the pipes down male geese's throats 3 times daily. So that's the first verb over here, right? And then we know that the second one, right, over here is the second verb because of the word and, all right? And this is the second verb, but it still is owned by the subject, workers over here. So workers push, workers pump. So workers is plural, right? Because there's an S behind. So remember, subject-verb agreement is always the opposite. Huh? So plural subject, no S for the verb. Singular subject, S for the verb. So here, the answer is supposed to be pump. All right, so we say the workers pump, right, as much as 2 kilograms of grains into the animal's stomachs, causing its livers. Now, this is a wrong pronoun, right? For the number 2 over here, it's a wrong pronoun. We only use it when we refer to the singular. We use they and them or their when we refer to the plural over here. So therefore, in this case, its is actually wrong, right? Because we are, after all, talking about the animals, right? That's plural, isn't it? So this has to be changed to causing. Can we say causing its livers? No. What's the possessive? Sorry?
Their.
There. Thank you. All right. So causing their livers to fatten and swell up. All right. So over here, we can call this error, just call it wrong pronoun, basically. And then for the first one, it's actually a subject-verb agreement error. So we say SVA for short, subject-verb agreement, SVA. Okay. Next, livers to fatten and swell up under 10 times their normal size. So this preposition over here, under, right, is technically, okay, it's technically in the right place. All right. And there is so-called nothing wrong with it, with open and closed inverted commas, except that the liver is not shrinking under a certain size. It's actually expanding. And when it's expanding, we don't use the preposition under. All right. So, and swell up, we say over, right? It swells up to over 10 times their normal size. So therefore, this part over here, we can call this a wrong preposition. And why is it wrong? It's not that it's grammatically wrong, it's wrong in the context, which means it doesn't make sense with the content that is being shown to us over here. So it's contextually wrong. All right. So that's that. The pain involved in force feeding caused trauma. Once again, we have another. What kind of error is this? Can someone tell me?
Subject verb agreement.
Yes, Jaden, thank you. So this is SVA. Now, Jaden, can you tell me what is the subject that's actually that actually owns the verb here, cause? We're not talking about human, we're talking about a feeling in this same sentence.
The
The
pain.
pain, that's right, very good, thank you. So this is actually the main subject here, all right? And over here, right, we don't say pains, right? It's not plural, it's the pain, it's one pain only. And so Jaden is absolutely correct, all right? This needs to have an S behind. All right, in force feeding causes trauma to the bird.